Good, good. Um, I was just saying that we're going to be super casual. This is going to be just questions for Bruce, and he's got a little presentation that he
Great.
somewhat did for the summit, and we'll just go through those renderings and drawings and Bruce's thinking on those, and then we'll have time to chat. So, Bruce, it's all yours.
All right, great. Thanks. Great to see everybody. Yeah, I'll go through a little slide presentation that we just last week shared with CAD and all our friends in Tanzania, and have shared with Jan and Steve. So I'll go through just to show you where we are with the design process and early stages of construction drawings. And please stop me anywhere for any questions. I can, like Jan said, we'll just keep it informal. So you want me to point anything out or answer any questions along the way, let me know. So I'll start a screen share here, and let me know if you can see things.
You're good.
Yeah, okay. Can you see my cursor too, the little hand moving around?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. That'll be helpful to help describe things. Let's see here. No? Okay, there we go. Hold on, I'm gonna just do one thing. Okay, so this is the overall view of the site. And to orient oneself, this is the road here that comes along at the bottom side of the site from the tarmac road up to Karuko. And often this road is taken on the way down out of Karuko. And this is kind of north towards the top of the page. Towards the east is the valley and a lot of the land that I believe CAD is in possession of and will be the future farmland and grazing land for animals and so on. So that's the general lay of the land, and this boundary is the property that we've designated for this first phase of the rocks. And within the first phase has been broken up into many phases, but we wanted to always keep our eye on the future development of the site. So these blue shapes here represent some of the future planning that will happen. And we wanted to plan the current food processing facility, which is in the gray, with all of that in mind. So the honey processing, the juice processing, the dairy processing are all within this kind of L-shaped food processing facility. And along the periphery of the site, the animal pens close to the edge facing the farm. So to just facilitate animals returning to the pens and so on. And farm implements also near the road and the farm, so tractors could drive along and be stored. The assembly hall, which is envisioned as a kind of educational space for Karuko students, Karuko graduates, and for members of the community to be placed prominently at the intersection here, and then future market areas along the road as one passes by to and from the university, with also affording some space for a veterinarian back here. This is all has been shifted around many times and it can continue to shift, but these are the kind of space allocations for those. And this is kind of a view of where we stand now, the food processing facility, and without those other phases that might come later. So again, this is the road as you come up towards Karuko and the road down from Karuko, and wanted to place the buildings in such a way that they open up a space at this intersection for footpaths and for car traffic, and a kind of like a quad or some kind of campus square that faces the road. I'll show you an image next from this position on the road looking towards the facility to give you a sense of what it looks like. And so this is, here you see this road passing by. And I think if you remember from last presentations, this is an evolution of the design. Again, the big kind of conical spaces being the food processing rooms, harking on and incorporating a lot of the design inspiration from a lot of the traditional architecture. These buildings under this low gable roof are a lot of the connective tissue, as I call it, which are administration spaces, changing rooms, bathrooms, offices, facilities, storage, and so on. And I'll get into that as we look at the plans. But this is the overall view as you approach from the tarmac and pass by and go up towards the Caruco campus. And here's our drone view or bird's eye view. Various road access for some of these loading docks and administrative spaces. I'll get into the lay of the land in the plans with footpaths connecting and entering in at various points. Along the back, there's a service road too that would be mostly used for tractors and deliveries and so on.
So everybody, when Bruce said drone view, this was an actual drone shot that we took when we were out there of this land, and then Bruce put his renderings on top of that.
Yep. Yeah, this was the ETI CAD drone that we used. Some of these cars were actually the ones that were, we were driving in and looking down on, and then got collaged into this image.
Cool.
And then a quick note on the roofs. This is a product that I found locally sourced that's not an iron, like a metal sheet that's usually very poor for heat transmission and acoustic transmission when it rains or when it's really hot. It's a kind of fiber material that will help deaden greatly the sound of rain and also not get as hot in the sun. So that's one material that we picked. And they also provide a clear material. So in some places you see that for some of these storage spaces around, and I'll talk about some of these cuts that allow for ventilation in some of the administration spaces. And this is just a technical drawing, a roof plan of that same image. Again, you have the juice processing, which will be the pineapple juice processing, honey processing, which has also been part of it, and dairy. And I know ETI has been talking about pushing the juice processing forward. But again, we wanted to, as architects and planners, just keep our eye on the future development too, and to make sure all parts of the building we're going to be working as we plan forward into the future. So I'm going to take the roof off and look into the plan. So you can see that once you take off the roof, that it's really divided into two distinct buildings. The building that houses the juice and the honey, and then the dairy processing. We'll talk mostly about this building, the juice and honey. The dairy has not been as developed, as it seems like it's maybe further down the road. And also the fact that these are kind of more interconnected. I developed these together. The roof that connects these two is just a bridge and connective piece for shade and for rain protection for loading docks that access these spaces. So that's what that roof is there. So I'll zoom now into the juice processing facility so we can see it a little closer. So these are the various spaces. All these spaces have these outdoor corridors that would be outfitted with benches and shade and protection from the rain, and places for people to walk between the buildings and to sit and wait or meet. and once you pass by this outdoor sitting area, there's an indoor reception area. So also with kind of COVID in mind during this last year, wanted, gave a little more room to this outdoor waiting area that's fully, covered and protected from the elements, but also allows, groups of people or students or so on to be able to wait outside before entering into this space, which also afforded more space to for the offices. So when you first enter, there's a reception area. So there is some inside waiting area, reception desk, and then there's you branch off into two administrative spaces, one that would focus on the juice processing, and another one that would focus on the honey processing. But this is one kind of big office space, so it could also be carved up in a variety of ways, whether you wanted to put more administrative space on one side and more educational learning on another. There's a flexibility to the use. Behind this wall, there's a corridor that then services all the workers between these processing floors. And there's a series of bathrooms and changing rooms, all divided into male, female for each. So a men's bathroom, women's dressing, men's dressing. And then in each room immediately adjacent to the food processing floor, there will be like a sanitary space where the workers would get clothed into, typically it's like the white boots and the white robes and the hairnets and so on, and clean their hands and feet and enter into the food processing spaces. Then within the food processing space, again, kind of designed in the round for both flow of materials and process, but also for the benefit of educational benefits to be able to see what's happening from all points on the floor. And to that end, there are also, all these spaces feature these windows and desks that open up through and into those spaces. So from within this administration space, one could see what's happening, both for like just overseeing workers, as a business, but also potentially like, educational groups being able to look inside, so that they wouldn't have to maybe every single time go through the process of getting cleaned and sanitized to enter the space. So there's two different ways of viewing what's happening, but wanted to provide enough space on the floor itself too for groups of students to see what's happening. Then out of each end off the food processing, everything kind of goes in a, I guess you would say, counterclockwise way, where there's a loading dock where the raw materials would come in, the pineapples would come in onto the loading dock, whether it's by pickup truck or bicycle, and then cleaned and sorted and stored, and then brought into the food processing floor and kind of go through the various steps of cleaning the fruit or processing the fruit and bottling it, and then out to a similar set of rooms that would store that final product, and then out to a loading dock for taking that product away. And this is a view inside the, I skip a slide now. This is a view inside this administration space, standing kind of like right as you enter that space. So those windows I mentioned looking from the administrative space into the food processing space are through here. There's another set of windows that monitor people coming and bringing material. So there's a way to also kind of COVID friendly, hopefully we'll be far past that at that point, but where people could, bring their goods and maybe receive payment through a window, and just, receipts or so on. So observe that traffic, and the room would have enough space for, and flexible for working. All the spaces have this aspect of having, I think a decent amount of natural light and ventilation. And these high windows up here provide a way for air to pass through and take hot air up and out of the space, and to also provide natural light from all sides in the space. So again, that was the view standing here looking in this direction. Those are the desks facing the loading dock. These are the desks facing the juice processing. Here was that conference table and storage that could be also built out to be a storage room if needed. On the opposite side of the reception, there's the office that services the honey processing, and a similar kind of counterclockwise inputs, storage, cleaning, processing around the floor, then output, storage, and then out to a loading dock. So it's, kind of the same, different format, but a similar kind of counterclockwise flow of materials and people and labor. And here's the inside of one of those food processing floors. So both of those floors, the honey and the pineapple processing, are about the same, or they are the same size and same construction. So they're flexible in their use, and hopefully can accommodate a variety of uses, and also a scaling up of production over time. If they would want to scale up pineapple product production, or if they would want to leave pineapple juice production altogether and do a different kind of production, have designed the space flexible enough to accommodate that. So all around the space, around most of it, like about 3/4 of the space, you have natural light coming in. Some of it abuts the adjacent buildings, and you have natural light from above that's meant to reflect off the ceilings and diffuse around naturally. This light area on top too is meant to take heat up and away from the workers and out, and with kind of, also artificial lighting obviously provided around the space. And yeah, all this, would have access to water points and power points, so a variety of machines can be plugged in and needed and used as needed. Here's a view from the outside, some of the working elevations. Again, focusing over here on the juice processing, the honey processing, and the dairy. And this is from the other side, juice, honey, dairy. And here's a kind of close-up view, rendered view of that. Dairy in the foreground, the juice processing, and the honey. And so this would be all kind of local brick production, construction, and the conical space is a thinner brick, basically a brick tile, clay tile, and then this connective tissue with this kind of simple gable roof with that material I was mentioning. Some other elevations from different views. This is looking at the juice processing and the loading dock in the foreground. And that's a view of that. This is the loading dock for the pineapple processing, the juice processing floor. And along this wall is where all the changing rooms and bathroom facilities are. So you just have this kind of higher strip windows just for light and ventilation, but to maintain privacy for those spaces. And in these storage spaces too, kind of a limited amount of windows. A lot of the light comes from above and down into the space, but to free up wall space for storage. So that's why you don't have like that many windows you've seen from this side. And these are some of the working sectional drawings. So these are where you cut through the building in a variety of places. So this is a cut through the administrative spaces So kind of like the front walkway, the administrative, that corridor, the high ventilation and light, and the changing rooms. This is a cut through the food processing area and adjacent kind of sanitation room, and a cut through some of the loading docks on the honey processing. And some additional, this is a cut through kind of the whole project through the dairy processing and the loading dock area and the pineapple processing. And then these are just kind of like zooming in on some of those areas. This again here is the administrative space that we looked at. So this is the administrative room. These are the corridor with the overhang, so protection from direct sun and rain. And then this is the high vented area that we were looking at. So this is a view of that drawing basically. So those windows, the space, and the high vented area. So that's what you see through here. And then the processing room beyond, which is here. And again, this is a kind of more technical drawing through the space. So, you know, we've been developing the foundation drawings, the wall drawings, you know, rebar layouts, brick coursing, and structure and some idea of training and how to structure the space. So the next is we're going to be working with a structural engineer to kind of take these drawings to the next step. Again, that's the 3D rendered view of something like this. And some other technical drawings, just, you know, initial sections. And then these are just some of the sheets that are being produced for details. You can see some, you know, gutter details, ring beam details, how the truss attaches to the concrete ring beam, brick layouts down to, you know, the floor finishes and the foundation, you know, windows to roofing to gutters, waterproofing, just things that we're starting to work on and get into more detail to just test the building and, you know, see how buildable it is and what materials go into it and what kind of details go into it. So these are just some of these kind of more technical drawings. And some 3D studies of the conical space, how it gets structured and waterproofed and laid with the finished material. Some more technical drawings, structure, waterproofing, gutters. And I'll just take you one last time through the 3D views, which everyone's always the most interested in, so I'll take those through. So again, the food processing floor, supporting administrative space, view from the road at the full complex, bird's eye / drone view. View in the kind of common quad-like space, kind of campus space. And then from the back, from the loading docks and the service road at the end of pineapple processing in the foreground. And that's what I got.
So Bruce, are those vultures in the air?
It depends on the day. Yeah, some days they're vultures, some days they're crows. Yeah.
Those are pineapple birds, Mel.
Oh, okay.
That's where the pineapple juice comes from.
Yeah, I was confused.
Yeah, that happened.
They deliver. Yeah.
Beautiful. Any questions?
This is spectacular.
Oh,
How far
thank you.
along are we?
In what respect?
Yeah, in getting it built.
Yeah, I mean, the obviously a lot of pieces to put together on that. The drawings are, I'm happy with the development. The engineering will help us kind of test the design and the proposed structures, and we'll also then quantify all the materials that go into it, and we'll help recalibrate our price estimation. And then there's money, to build it. So I don't know if that's part of the question too, how far along we are, but I think maybe Jen can speak to that.
Well, I think it's important too that to know this is the board here, and so I think it's important to know our request for. Oh, I'm getting a message that my internet's unstable. Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So Bruce asked for engineering, a review on end of October last year, and we are still waiting on that. But as of the summit, we were able to push that forward a little bit with with a person that he selected. And so that's quite a few months that we've been waiting for that. Bruce is ready to roll, but we can't do it without that piece on the ground. COVID didn't help, certainly, and we would have been there for over a week or at least a week. So those things have definitely affected the timeline. But anyway, I'm hopeful that it'll start this year, but that's me. What do you think, Bruce?
I think it's definitely doable. Between what I need to do in the engineering, I think in a few months' time, I would have to think about like how many months exactly, but I could have everything done drawing wise. But in that process, like there's many other pieces that can be the quantity surveying is another piece. So quantity surveying is
Yes.
a third party. It's actually exactly what the word says, like quantity surveying. So they like survey all the quantities that go into the building. So basically, like all the ingredients that make this, from the site preparation to the foundations, like all the cubic meters of stone and brick and steel, linear meters of steel and roofing that go into it. And so between the design, the engineering, and the quantity surveying, then we really get the full picture of the project. And then we know exactly, the funding, and what it takes to construct. But at that point, it would be ready to be constructed. So, but it's there's a lot to be known in that process. We don't have to wait till the very end to know. It's a kind of iterative process.
Well, one last thing about that, and that is that Bruce has helped us with hard costs. And of course, we need those pieces that he just mentioned. I also have a proposal from Bruce that talks about him going over and working intermittently, and then a plan that was the full scale plan where he goes over and just stays for a period of time. So we have those two budgets. But as you well know, we have a travel advisory, not even advisory anymore. The embassy has said there's no travel. And so it's just another thing that we have to think about. But as far as the actual pieces moving together, I feel that the one thing that we don't have as much control as we would like is the engineering review. But I think as of the summit, that came into our hands. And so now I feel comfortable moving forward with that, and we'll know a lot more about that schedule, I think, when we have that.
Are there any issues with acquisition of the materials that you need?
That's a good question. I've been working also on a project just over the border in Rwanda, and it's we have seen that there have been price increases on certain materials, things like steel, Cement has stayed pretty stable because there's a decent amount of like local production on that. I think, you know, the bricks will be local, the stone for the foundations will be local. So I think a lot of the locally sourced materials will be hopefully fairly stable. It's anything that comes from any little bit of distance, and depending on the yeah, just how the markets have been operating, COVID has put a strain on the pricing. I'm hoping by the time that we kind of are actually ready to put the shovels in the grounds, that a lot of those things will readjust and kind of return. I don't know if they'll ever return back to normal because there's also always like combined with inflation, but you know, will kind of be a little more normalized, and that the predictability of availability hopefully will also kind of return a little more. That said, too, like Tanzania, everything kind of usually comes through Tanzania, you know, from Dar es Salaam. So the fact that everything's just within country, even if it comes from abroad, you know, like some of the raw products, some of the steel, it's all like just within that one border. So some of the challenges that I have across the border in Rwanda are often exacerbated just by, you know, cross border travel.
So Bruce, what's the name of that roof, the fiber for the roof? What's the name of that
It's
material?
called Onduline,
Onduline?
Onduline. Yeah, I believe the company has like different headquarters in Turkey and in Europe, but I think they do production of some of the material on the continent. And it's in a material that you see being used in East Africa a lot. And it's an affordable material too. There are other options like to provide a solution to the loud and hot nature of the iron sheets, the steel sheets that are a lot more expensive, but we kind of just wanted to rule those out. But we found this that's comparable to those more affordable alternatives, but just performs a lot better.
Great. Any other questions?
You've done an outstanding job. Hooray.
Thanks,
No
guys.
kidding.
Thank
I
you.
agree.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're all right, Bruce.
Becky or Addie, anybody? Do you have anything you want to add or ask?
I had a question about the construction of the juice processing plus or minus the honey processing. Are you going to do an iterative build with juice processing, kind of put a wall there and then know that that wall can be taken down for the next phase, or is the intent to kind of go one for all?
That's a really good question. Yeah, it is, you know, definitely the juice and the honey are more like Siamese twins, where the dairy is an easy, obvious standalone to separate. And the juice and honey we'd have to strategically think about where to divide. I think I haven't gotten to that. I've had it in the back of my mind. And on the same, like, in the same token, I've also been trying to be optimistic of like, hopefully by the time it comes to build, we can build all of it. We can build them together. But yeah, I think that's what we would do. We would just kind of section off an area that could then just later be expanded upon. And, you know, even like reuse the bricks that maybe would make up a temporary wall. But potentially even just build right up to the conical shape for the next, like, you know, circular shape for the honey processing. So it would literally just then be adding and without having to do any subtractive process. Yeah, but that's a good question.
So I just made the cardinal mistake. I started talking when I was on mute. I've only spent like 6 hours on Zoom today. Bruce, this is super exciting. We're looking forward to actually getting this stuff built. We got a ways to go, of course. But for Mel and Becky and Addie, for you guys to see some of the inner workings of what we're looking at, the reception by CAD has been rousing. They are just unbelievable. In fact, they don't believe it. They basically say, well, if you can build just a quarter of this, we're going to be amazed. And when, for instance, when Bruce showed the rotunda, if you will, of the processing facility, the bishop says, well, where are we ever going to get materials to build that? And Bruce said, well, that's basically tubular steel. It's normal stuff. It just is designed a different way. And so, we're kind of pushing, right, Bruce? I mean,
Yeah, no, I wanted to and that's something I've always been try to battle with or fight myself with trying to push a design that's interesting and inspiring and contextual and uplifting, but at the same time also respects the material availability and the economy of means, and just the technicality, and the skill needed to build it. So I think it looks maybe a little more daunting than it is, but I'm pretty confident that with some engineering consultation and develop the drawings that I can spell it out and make it very doable. So yeah.
that's great. So as everybody can appreciate that, there's a fine line there between doing not enough and too much. But
Yeah.
we have such a great relationship with ETI and CAD, and such an open relationship that they feel very comfortable telling us how they feel on these things, and they love Bruce and trust him. So we've already done a lot of legwork to get there. Well, Jan, do you have anything else you want to add, or else I'll just wrap her up?
No, I think we've done our excuse me, our half an hour plus some. I told Bruce a bit half hour. So any other questions, please feel free to let us know. And we're in communication with Bruce very regularly. But I thank you all for your time. And if there's nothing more, I think we do that Zoom clap, and we'll send Bruce on his way. Keep on working, Bruce. We're energized. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Bruce.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. I'm energized too. I've been loving this process, loving working with all of you and all of the CAD folks. And I said this to Jen, I think once in a side email. It's I think all of that is actually resulted for me personally and professionally in one of the projects that I'm happiest with and most proud of. And I really loved everything about the process and the project and what we're trying to do. So I love every step of the way. So thanks everyone. It's great to see everyone.
Thank
Well,
you.
We
Yeah,
love
nice.
you too,
Well,
Bruce.
yeah, hopefully we get to see each other in person soon. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah.
it's
Thanks,
coming.
everyone.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.